I was wondering what video to do while I sit here and wait for my car to charge. Radiant energy is the same as the orgone that Trevor Constable talks about and other people, Gunther Wachsmuth, and what's that other guy? Karl von Rickenbach, I think it's, yeah. The odic force. What Trevor Constable relayed to us, the most recent teacher in living memory, although he did pass recently, was that the ether does the opposite of what air pressure does. It flows not from a high to a low, as air pressure does, but from a low to a high. From a low pressure of etheric pressure, to a high pressure zone. Now what in electrical, since I've discerned so far that radiant energy is in the electrical circuit, but it flows the opposite direction to amperage, which means that the traditional arrow on a diode is the correct direction, not for amperage, going in the opposite direction, but for radiant energy. Now, that's going against resistance. Greater resistance than if it were to go in the opposite direction. In other words, the only thing about a diode is that the ohmage, the resistance, is greater in one way than the other way to encourage most of the amperage to flow in the path of least resistance, in the direction of least resistance. But that doesn't mean it's not going to go in the other direction. I have these very weak diodes. They're germanium. They're like the lowest, you usually find. I forget what number they are. And I measured their ohmage, and it's like a difference of 10 megaohms between them. One is 8 megaohms going in the direction of no resistance, which would be opposite the arrow, right? Or no. Well, I don't know. You put the... whatever. You measure both ways. And the lesser of the two was 8 megaohms, and the greater of the two was 18. So that's a difference of 10 megaohms, which basically means it's roughly double one way versus the other way. But it was measurable in the realm of the tens of megaohms. So that got me thinking, well, gee, that's kind of weird. That's like a one-way resistor of sorts, because it's not really. It's actually a resistor both ways. It just favors one way over the other. So, if radiant energy goes in the direction opposite to amperage, then, and if amperage works the same way air pressure does, very often people will, if they want to qualify or define for us newbies like me, right here, how is the flow of electricity explained to a newbie? Well, then they say, well, voltage is like pressure in a fluid dynamic or in a gaseous dynamic, in which it flows from a high to a low, high pressure to a low pressure. So if you've got a lot of volts behind you, the electrons can be pushed along. And okay, sounds cool, but that's the opposite to the flow of radiant energy. So this is a perfect analogy as to explain why the ether behaves the opposite, because we've already got the analogy right, hidden in plain sight, right in front of our nose, in the dynamics of electric theory, explained in terms of fluid dynamics. So if fluid dynamics and electricity flows from a high pressure to a low pressure, then yeah, duh, radiant energy would go from a low to a high, because it's just the opposite direction. The phenomenon is there. Now that's presuming, of course, that the area of low voltage that the amperage is flowing toward is also an area of low radiant energy, which of course makes you wonder here we go. It makes you wonder, what's the use of radiant energy if you have to get it from a vacuous source. This is not just the vacuum state. This is like the void of the ether, okay, where there's not much ether. That's where you go to get it, because that's ether is going to come to you. If you've got too much and there's too little somewhere else, you go to where there's very little. Does that make any sense? No, it's reverse logic. But let's think about this. How did Wilhelm Reich do his job? The same way an acupuncturist does theirs. They take their needles and they stick it in somewhere to take away the block. What kind of block? An energy block. The energy, there's a density of energy, kind of like an acne pimple, filled with pus or whatever. But this is filled with energy, radiant energy, ether energy. There's too much of it there and it blocks the flow. So the important thing about radiant energy is not to have lots of pressure, but to have lots of flow. And the flow goes the opposite, and so it's pressure that's going to block the flow. Can you imagine? So refinement means vacuity. It's analogous, it's equivalent to a lack thereof. But we're dealing with ether. We're dealing with radiant energy. We're not talking about electricity. Isn't it uncanny? This is like turned around. That's like Alice in Wonderland. This is what Lewis Carroll was talking about in Alice in Wonderland, and through the murky glass, through the murky vision, through the looking glass, everything is turned around. And he wrote it at a time when we were more familiar with the ether than we are today. So it's very appropriate that he wrote what he wrote, because he knew. It was in the air. It was in, among the intelligentsia. They knew. We're done. We've forgotten all this stuff. So you want to get a training, go read, Lewis Carroll's stuff, and then maybe go read his book on, Principia, whatever it's called, Mathematica. Huge thing. It's like a telephone book. It's so big. It's either that or logic. I think it's math. Anyway, principles of math. Huge. I've never written it. I just read it. I've just looked at the whole thing. I don't think I want to read that. It's too big for me. It's the old language, old style of talking, which is very verbose, like me. When I read, I speed read. I don't want to have to take forever to read. So, all these points are very good to keep in mind because it's very interesting. So, if we want to deal with radiant energy, the ether, this is what Wilhelm Reich did. He would take energy blockages and dissolve them so that the seasons could come when they're supposed to come. The rain could come when it's supposed to come, instead of being blocked and you end up with a drought. And it's being withheld because it can't flow. So the whole point to radiant energy is its vacuity and maintaining its vacuity so that it can flow, because if it gets congested with too much, it congregates like a bunch of people milling around who can't figure out what to do because they can't decide because there's too many of them. If you get one person, you make a decision real quick, like too many cooks in the kitchen. See, how many people does it take to boil a pot of water? One. It doesn't take more than one unless, you got problems. It's the same issue here. You don't want to overdo it. It's very refined, very attenuated, very, So, light touch, as Charlie Lutz would say. To be in the world, but not of it. A light touch. So that's the secret to radiant energy. So, that validates this presumption of mine. It further validates, at least in theory, hypothesis, that radiant energy flows in the direction opposed to amperage. So that when Thomas Bearden would say, don't kill the dipole, that's good, except it doesn't tell us the orientation. It's the other way. The electrons are going one way due to the pressure behind them, and the radiant energy is going the opposite way towards the pressure. So wherever there is lots of voltage, there's lots of radiant energy, but it's not going to do you any good. It's only going to do you good where there isn't any voltage. That's where you go to get your radiant energy, where there's no volts. By comparison to your reference, which has more volts. Okay, got it? See, everything's backwards through the looking glass. It's backwards. We're not talking about mirage. That's something else. Oh, he's just making this up, Vinny. He just likes to cook up theory. Pillow talk. Oh, pillow. Oh, no. This is logical, and it's self-consistent with what we've been told about the ether, about the orgone, about all those things that are relevant to Tesla's radiant energy. And oddly enough, did he have diodes in his day? I don't know if he had. He had vacuum tubes, which actually were equivalent to diodes, now that I think of it. Yeah, but he dealt with extreme power, quotas. I'm not dealing with that. So, yeah, I guess I could get away with separating radiant energy from amperage, provided I don't expect to power anything, like an electric car, a big energy hog, if ever there was one. Especially a heavy electric car like mine. I don't know how heavy these Priuses are, Toyota Prius. God, I driving in one the other day, it felt like a shoebox, bouncing along, bing, bing, bing. But my car, it's like a Sherman tank. It's so heavy. Yeah, I need a lot of volts. Give me a lot of volts. I'm an energy hog here. And it takes forever to charge, too. So that's my thought, that radiant energy is really a cool thing if we start to understand it, but we just got to listen to the masters. Trevor Constable is one of them. Wilhelm Reich is another. Gunther Wachsmuth is a third. Karl von Rickenbach is a fourth. And those are the ancient ones, the ones from time, They're the more recent ones, but not really, because the more recent ones have more of an electrical background. And this other from the more ancient times, like 150 years ago, is really important in order to understand how it fits in with the scheme of things. So now in Atlantis, the way they described it was the radiant energy is the night side, the dark side of nature. Or as Eric Dollard would put it, there's a guy who straddles both worlds very fluently, if ever there was one. Because he says this other energy is quantified, or qualified if you prefer, by complex numbers. Square root of -1 times something, or plus something, or whatever they are. It's been a while, you can tell, right? So that explains this other side, counter space, as Eric puts it, this other side of nature that the Atlanteans called the dark side. Well, the Nazis called it the Schwarz soul. I think it's the black sun, the soul. The Schwarz soul, the black sun, what we would call black holes, because you can't measure it, but you can infer the energy that's there, but you can't measure it with a meter. Oh, that would be terrible for the J.P. Morgans and the Southern California Edison and whatnot, the power companies. Oh, you can't meter radiant energy? Oh my God, and you got to go for it where it's not? Ooh, that is weird. But it changes the whole psychology, because we run to authority thinking they've got what we need, and you have to take the opposite approach and go. It's not exactly being a rebel, but worse, you might be called a fool. To be going out into the desert to look for wealth. But there's nothing there. Perfect! It'll come to me, though. If I go to where it's a congestion, it ain't going to come to me, and then we got to pick and fight our way through the crowd, the mass of humanity, competing with all the wealth that everybody is so desperate to hold on to. Oh yeah, it's all in the city, right. But everybody's going to fight you tooth and nail and not let you just get it. You want to get it, you go out where there's nobody around. And yeah, there's not much to get, but it'll come to you very readily. That's the irony of life. Iron that one. Iron that irony. Press that on your shirt, on your dress shirt. Okay, I think I've dwelled on this topic enough. I'm trying to get more mileage out of it, right? I'm hypermiling. I'm thinking. Whatever. Okay, time to shut up.